So, Gord, the prescriptions call for different types of cuts. And you're telling us that as we look around here, this is actually a clear cut.
This is a clear cut. And it's a clear cut in the sense that we took the silvicultural guidelines. We call this a poplar, white birch, balsam fir removal. Now, as you can see here, Glenn, that there's a whole bunch of trees left. Well, they're all young hardwood trees. These guys have to work all through this area and not damage that regen. And we're hoping, once we got the poplar white birch out of here, we're going to get a hardwood bush out of this in 25, 30 years. Now, they also leave wildlife trees in this. You've seen some oak, which is a mass tree. We've talked about that before, but this is a clear cut for this part of the country. We've got a lot of hardwood residual trees left in this area.
And you're telling us not far from here, actually up on that ridge over there, that's all a hardwood select cut, right?
This ridge, as it goes up the ridge, it comes to a hardwood hill, and then we deemed it a selection cut in hardwood, and that's where our marking kicked in. And we're doing a selection harvest up on top of the hill.
And down over the hill here, what do we have down there?
That would be Lamab Creek, and that's the marsh down there, and that we keep our AOCs away from that because that is one of the prime speckled trout creeks in this area. So it's very important that we have our ribbons up so no equipment gets anywhere near that important area of concern.
And they were telling us, and they actually have GPS systems in their equipment to know exactly where they're supposed to go.
The young fella on the Feller Buncher, he uses a GPS a lot, and he can. I give him a map. It's a grid map, and he knows where he is. But also, all those boundaries are ribboned with red reserve ribbons.
So there's still visuals out there.
There's visuals out there, and if a ribbon gets pulled down, he knows where he is on the block, and he starts looking for that ribbon when he gets close.
So, Gord, this is another example of a different type of cut. You were calling it a commercial thinning cut, and explain what the purpose of that is.
This is a planted red pine plantation, and this is the first cut that has happened in this area since the pine have been planted. So we're going through, we're doing some spacing in it, and we're hoping that these get to be big trees someday. But this is a very tricky situation with red pine, because if we let it go too far, then it gets spindly. Like it gets tall and thin, and if we take some out of it, then we get a heavy snow year or an ice storm, then it all falls down. So you have to be very careful with your prescription when you're dealing with this, because we don't want to lose what we've already gained. So you have to get these areas at a certain period in their life cycle to open it up. You can open it up too much, or you can not take enough. So it's a really touchy situation. This area here was cut by a guy that specializes in this, and his name is Jerry Summers, and he's working on Bob Robinson's license here. And most of these small red pine poles end up in Niagara, where they're pressure treated, and they are the fences that hold the grapes up. So this guy has made this
specialty business.
Specialty business. In the old days, an area like this, they'd just come in and fall all the stuff, but this guy is utilizing this stuff. So,
and one of the things you notice when we were looking through here is you can see sun on the ground in there, and we've seen other areas where there's red pines, and you can't see a speck of sun on the ground.
We're going to go down here, and we're going to show you a place where we haven't cut yet. So you're going to see a before and after. This is the post-harvest. We'll show you the pre-harvest down here.
Great. So this is what you were talking about, Gord. I mean, we look into this bush, and you can't see 50 feet in there with the trees.
This is an area of the pine plantation that has not been cut yet. So he'll be coming in here and thinning this out, and he's leaving 50% to 65% of those trees in there, and they'll be able to expand their tops. As you can see now that their tops are all intertwined, and everybody's fighting each other. They just need some more room to expand, and the plantation will really take off after it's been thinned.
Well, you gave the analogy of carrots in a garden, that once you get too many carrots, nothing's growing.
You got to thin it out so they get bigger. It's interesting to see the one part that was cut and the part that hasn't been cut. A lot of people don't see what it looked like before. Yeah.
So, Gord, you brought us up here to show us what happens to white pines when they don't have protection.
This area was natural white pine. Now, what we've done is removed the white pine. We blue marked the larger, mature white pine, and it's called a shelterwood pine cut. And those trees are about 35 feet apart. And there's a prescription road on this, and that provides shade for the white pine trees that we have planted in there after we were done. So this has been underplanted, and a white pine has to have a certain amount of shade to grow. Now, if it grows out in the wide open spaces, there's a little bug comes along called a weevil, and it chops it off, and it makes 2 or 3 different leaders, and that's why you get pine growing all over the place. But these pine growing in this shade in here, white pine, they grow nice, straight, and tall with that amount of shade. Now, a red pine is different. It will grow out in an open field.
And you were saying the white pine, once they get by a certain height, they're fine and they'll keep growing straight.
That's right. We'll have when this gets up to be say 15 feet high, the young pines that we got in there, we'll come back here again with careful logging, because we've got all this young stuff here that we've invested money in, and we'll take half of the rest of the white pine away, and that makes that regen goes above that 15 feet. Then it can't be, the weevil doesn't bother it anymore, and it's you've got to help this along. This is we're naturally emulating fire in this way. Now, as you can see, we're right beside the highway.
Yeah.
If we had a fire here, we'd have
problems.
4 fire departments. Well, in the old days, this is how this pine stand was created, through fire. Mm-hmm. So we can't do that. Some places we do prescribed burns, but not beside Highway 62, just north of Maple Leaf. Okay? So we have to do it with a bulldozer, and then we have to hand plant our pine. Now, some of these pine will naturally seed in there, but we got to help the process out, and we do this planting. So we're pretty proud of this spot. It's right beside the highway, and we get a lot of questions about it. But
and there's an example of a tree that has been affected by the weevils right there. Right?
Yeah, when it was young, or it could have been another thing called blister rust, and the blister rust has taken the main leader off there. But that pine is doing its job. We needed it for its spacing. It's not as pretty as the one in behind it, but every tree isn't perfect. But we're really proud of with this spot here.
And I can remember when most of this was down, and it looked awful.
Yeah, we got a few complaints about it, but once the people saw what we did and the young pine coming up, everybody thinks it's wonderful. So it's just the education on what type of forestry that we're doing, and we're certainly not trying to hide it, because we're right beside 62 highway here, and it's out here for everybody to see and make their comment on.